Ahead this morning, Title IX fight. The Trump administration is launching an investigation into one state for refusing to ban biological boys from girls' sports. The classroom isn't just a place for learning. It's now center stage in America's culture wars, from race and gender to mental health and funding cuts. We're going to talk about all that, but we begin in Chicago, where the Department of Education has opened a Title VI civil rights investigation into the city's public school system. Joining us now is Nicole Neily, the president of Defending Education. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Well, the Department of Education's investigation is based on a complaint that your organization actually filed, Defending Education. Can you walk us through what CPS is doing and why you think it crossed the line?
Sure. So CPS has instituted what they're calling a Black Student Success Program. This is something that has been in the works for several years. There have been a number of planning meetings, a big rollout. But what it does is it intentionally targets significant district resources to help only Black students succeed. And when you dig into the program's justification and look at the program numbers, the matter is that all students of all races are struggling in Chicago. And so to take resources, taxpayer dollars, that are intended to help students of all backgrounds thrive and only help some students succeed and lift some students up, to us is a violation because it points to discrimination on the basis of race.
So what do you think should happen? I know Chicago, when it comes to test scores, I know Black students may be further down than other students, which is why I think this program is targeting Black students.
Right. Actually, there is a larger Hispanic student population,
but test scores
are struggling more than Black students. But this is, we have seen programs like this in other cities, including Los Angeles, Portland, Oregon. A few years ago, we filed a similar complaint against a program in Los Angeles. And even that was too much for the Biden administration. And Los Angeles ended up opening it to students of all backgrounds. There are many students of all races that have struggled, particularly in the wake of COVID in Chicago, Los Angeles. Those schools districts were not terrific to start with. And so we really just think that students who are needy should have access to resources and programming, period.
So you just want it opened up to everyone who's in the school district?
Yes.
Okay. So let's move to Washington State, where federal investigators just launched a Title IX probe in the Washington Office of Superintendent, their Public Instruction, or OSPI, after several school districts reported OSPI is basically requiring schools, this is what the school district is saying, to let transgender girls, meaning biological males, play on girls' sports teams and use their locker rooms and restrooms. Now, this appears to be a violation of that executive order that Trump signed. Who do you think is going to win this?
I think what we're going to see is the Trump administration is going to win. The Department of Education, Secretary Command have been very, very clear that they are prioritizing women and girls' spaces and participation in sports, things like that. We have seen this showdown happen in Maine. The Department of Justice got involved. But here in Washington State, there were a number of school districts that said we want to comply with the president's executive order, and we want to comply with Title IX. Let's remember that the Biden Title IX rules were enjoined, and so now we revert to Secretary DeVos's rules from 2020 that very clearly lay out that there is a separation there, what the actual definition of sex is. And so I think this is a fight that the Trump administration is not backing down from, and it is one I think that eventually they will prevail on.
Well, look, the Washington schools, they're saying at this point that they've had this in place since 2007, and that their protections, they believe, fit in line with the federal law, and that there haven't been any problems yet. And it's been in place for over 10 years, they say.
Just because it's been in place doesn't make it right. And the other thing I think that is important to note is this is an investigation that was opened through the Special Investigation Team, which is something that was just recently created between the Department of Justice and the Department of Education. So they're looking not only at the sports issue, but also at the issue of parental exclusion policies, where parents have information about their child's gender identity at school deliberately withheld from them. And so in the eyes of the Trump administration, this is a violation of both FERPA, the Federal Education Rights and Privacy Act, as well as the Protection of People Rights.
Well, let's talk about this very quickly. The Trump administration announcing this week that they're moving to cancel around $1 billion in school mental health grants. We're in the middle of a mental health crisis. What do you think of this?
I think what's important to note is they're not just canceling the grants across the board of all mental health intervention in the school. They're looking at grants that have specifically been used to fund things like anti-racism programming, things like that in schools, where, it is questionable whether this is actually helping students succeed, or is it starting to make students feel bad about themselves and be divided?
They're also funding
look
gun
at some
violence
of the
programs
that have been teaching. It's about, cis heteronormativity and things like that. Is that helping students thrive? Possibly not.
Well, it's a wide variety of things. I was reading here also gun violence prevention programs. Is there any way to take a scalpel to some of this stuff and maybe cut out the things that maybe isn't working, but help and keep other programs like, you want to prevent shootings in schools, right? So is it more prudent to take a scalpel to some of this stuff instead of just axing it all away?
$1 billion is a big number, but I do think they have been using a scalpel. Even looking at some of the school safety grants, we identified last year $100 million through the Department of Justice that should have been used for school safety, for things like, to prevent shootings. We found that used for programs like knitting circles and yoga. In my mind, that is not keeping students safe. That's a waste of resources.
But we don't know exactly what every piece of this $1 billion has been used for right now. I mean, they have to give, so we're still waiting to see. And then once we see, I guess they'll make a determination. Thank you so much, Nicole Neily, defending education.
Thank you.